That's right, yeah, it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's recording now.
Yeah, sure.
The podcast is called Taran's Rite Good Podcast.
It's right good, yeah. I was talking about it with Pat Healy today, and I said,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm going to talk with Taran today. And he goes, on the Right Good Podcast. I said, yeah. So, yeah, I have to talk to him, too, sometime. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I had Glenn and Mike on at one point, too.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And then you talked to Dylan.
Dylan, yeah. He was on a couple of times.
So what do you like to talk about?
Oh, it just, it goes all over the place, really. Like, we've talked about military stuff. My buddy Dylan, who's in the military, and
right.
Talked about tradesmen, carpentry, brewing beer, psychedelics, yoga, music.
Right, okay.
Pretty much anything. But,
right.
Anyways, where I'm here with Geordie Haley.
Hello.
How long have you been teaching guitar for?
Probably too long. I started when I really didn't know anything about it because I was in Fredericton, and there weren't a lot of guitar teachers around. And because I had a bunch of knowledge about scales and chords, but I hadn't really applied it. You know, I was kind of fresh out of school, and I was back home, and it was the whole thing where there weren't a lot of other people around who had the knowledge that I purportedly had. And I did know something about scales and chords, but I hadn't really gone to town on it. But a lot of people were just assuming that I knew how to play metal. So I got a lot of young guys, and this would have been like mid-'80s, so it was really the big hair days. It was all about Yngwie and all about even more sort of prototypical super metal guys, super fast stuff. And I didn't really have that together, but I could show people how to get there.
Yeah.
Right? And so I worked on that. And a lot of people had never, because it was the early days of Tab as well, and people were listening to the records, and CDs had just made an appearance at that point, right? So the medium was still vinyl, right? So people were dropping the needle on the record and kind of slowing it down and try to figure stuff out. And then what we would do is we would use cassettes, and I had a little cassette player that I could slow the tape down on it, but it wasn't like the YouTube thing where you can slow the song down and kind of pick away at the notes. It was like literally if I slowed it down, it would go at a pitch, right?
Yeah.
So I'd have to figure it out in D and then put it back in F or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was really hard, but a big part of that early teaching was kind of so I got my ass kicked basically, and I had to go and learn some of that stuff. It wasn't, of course, being it was a total jazz Nazi, so I was like, oh. But I learned a lot about shredding and approaches to different styles, especially picking, right? So really got my picking together, even though I never really went and performed any of that stuff. It definitely had an influence on my writing and how I put my notes together, at the time. So it was a really good thing. Teaching is always both learning new material for students, but also just learning what I know, kind of a thing, and sort of reaffirming that in some ways, and in other ways it's like, oh man, this is a huge empty hole in my knowledge. I got to go learn about flamenco, or a world music style, or reggae, or a shredding style, or what have you. Tapping was another thing. I'd never done any of that. So suddenly, I was working on my tapping skills, which, still are kind of different than what a lot of people use right now, but it's about growing, when you're teaching, right?
So it really started pushing you as a musician even more than
as a teacher, because there is a big difference between teaching and performing, and there's a lot of people who only teach. They're great players, unbelievable players. but they've just stopped putting their energy into trying to get gigs or putting a band together. Like we were just talking about it, you know, how difficult it can be to find like-minded people to work with, and even when you pay them, it can be dicey. You know, it doesn't. Sometimes it guarantees that I'm able to get the people I want, but it doesn't mean that those people are necessarily going to show up and have the work done. But sometimes people will show up, they'll have the work done, but they really actually don't really care that much about the music. So
there's no life to what they're playing.
Well, they're just they're kind of being robotic about it, and they're not really into it.
Yeah.
Again, we were just talking about being in front of an audience and how that changes all your preparation. Like you rehearse yourself, you rehearse your ensemble, you go in front of an audience, and that's where I would find I felt like I was getting pushback from ensembles that I would organize and put together and pay. You know, people kind of going, it's really not the direction I want to go, and I'm standing there kind of going, well, cool, I get that, but you signed up for this because I'm paying you. Can you at least get over that attitude? But it wasn't until we hit the stage that attitude would really fade, and people were like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, and then they suddenly realized that maybe it wasn't exactly what they wanted to do, right? Because musicians can get into a trap where you're playing a show or you're involved in an ensemble, and suddenly it feels like that is all you're ever going to do in your whole musical life.
Yeah.
Right? And people just hit a wall. They're just like, oh man, this is really depressing. I want to do so much more with my music. And okay, I get that. I've been in a situation where I was being paid and I still brought kind of a crappy attitude to it because I wasn't really into the music. And so I understand all of those sort of headspaces, but when you get in front of a house, it's totally different because then you find out really what works.
Yeah.
You know, does song A work? Well, yeah, it worked pretty good. Song B worked okay. Song C was a hit. Well, people just loved it.
Yeah.
Song D was like, that was the ballad. It just kind of went. Right?
Yeah.
You've been there. You know what it's like. You have a group of tunes, and the one you really like is kind of not well received. The one you thought was like kind of trashy, people love it.
Yeah. The whole crowd pops right off for it. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that the case with whoever wrote that "She's My Cherry Pie" song? That was just supposed to be for some ad. Like they didn't even want to do it.
Yeah.
Turned into this song that they're known for forever.
Exactly.
They probably didn't even like writing it.
Well,
who knows who's to say? But
you hear about artists that have that one hit or those two hits or something, and every time they play, they're expected to perform it.
Yeah.
And how some people really don't want to do that song, and then other artists who are like totally like, of course I'm going to do that song. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. Hopefully they'll listen to the other songs I've written, but the reason I've got a crowd at all is because I wrote that song. And then respect the audience.
Yeah. I think that's a better attitude for sure.
It is. I've been on both sides of that coin where I've shown disrespect to audiences, and it has really backfired. Because I was like younger and just, full of vim and vigor, and everything was kind of pointed in the wrong direction. And then other times where I'm like totally into it and give it 100%, and really aware of how the night's going, and trying to guide it so that we're always hitting a surprise. Because for me, Taran, really the performing is once you've got your repertoire and you're comfortable with it, you know what's going on, you know what to play and all that kind of stuff. It's the surprise that really makes it. Even though you've played that song 50 times and you get out there in front of the audience, and it's all different. It's shifted because I said forehead. What's that? The third eye.
Third eye, yeah.
The third eye, right? Because people really project with that third eye. They really do. You're on the stage, and that's really what you're feeling because it's the telepathy, right? It's that secret thing. And we've talked about this before in ensembles when you have, a tight band that rehearses 2 or 3 times a week, even once a week if the players are really good. But you get experience in that telepathy. Even Frank Zappa, who's like the total curmudgeon and didn't believe any of that hippie shit, but he really talked about how telepathy was a real part of his ensemble, and that's what he sought when he would rehearse a band 6 days a week for 3 months before he took them on the road, right? That's what he was after. Like, the material was really important, but it was that idea that should anything go awry, should the band not be able to hear themselves or hear other members of the band, that everyone would know exactly where they were, because it was beyond the ears, it was beyond the brain.
Totally.
So I think that, again, we're talking about narrative, and part of being on stage with an audience in front of you is they're looking for a narrative, but they know that they're going to get it in a different way. That somebody's not going to stand up unless we really want that. But on a music show, for the most part, people are looking for that narrative, and they don't have to be told it verbatim. You know what I mean? And that's kind of a third eye thing.
Implicit knowledge.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like articulated in their head by any means.
Yeah, but they feel it.
Yeah, and that's why people like flock to concerts by the tens of thousands sometimes.
Yeah, because they know they're
doing.
they're going to get it, right? They're going to get something really good that they couldn't get anywhere else.
It's like a religious experience.
It has been for me.
Yeah.
Both performing and going to hear people play, just like transforming, just like literally my brain has been turned upside down. I went to see Ravi Shankar and his daughter, what's her name? Not Nora Jones, but Anushka sings. Anushka's a sitar player as well.
Okay.
And it was a big show at Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto. And at the time I was teaching at a little school that was part of an outfit called St. Christopher House in Toronto. And St. Christopher House provided a lot of shelter for homeless people, a lot of English classes for new immigrants, all kinds of sort of social services that they were kind of adding on to what the state, like what Ontario would provide for people. St. Christopher House was an extra layer of help. So there was food, there was shelter, there were lessons, and part of it was a music school, right, that had really cheap lessons, right? So I taught there for years and years. And one day the boss comes in, and she's a great lady from Newfoundland, and Sherry goes, okay, you want to go see Ravi Shankar? I'm like, yeah. Because I saw that he was playing and I couldn't afford it. I was like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at the time?
Hey, Holly, how's it going? Speaking of great musicians, there she is. This is Taran. This is Holly.
Nice to meet you.
Long-standing friend, incredible musician. This woman,
I love Geordie.
Just puts everyone to shame. Yep.
Just spent 3 lovely days in Fredericton. Thought of you.
What were you doing in Tiny Town?
I didn't tell you. The Dorbs. I was doing a show at the Playhouse with a UK-based performer named Tayo Aluko, who was touring a one-man show on Paul Robeson.
Okay, right, okay.
And just lovely. So, the Playhouse. Forget about it. 9-foot Steinway.
Oh, nice. Was it just piano? Or?
Yeah, it was just piano. And then we went to St. John and played the Imperial Theatre.
Hello.
I played like 18 feet of Steinway.
That's great.
Sweet.
Did you go to Moncton too? Or?
We didn't go to Moncton, but we finished up in Immaculata.
Nice.
Yeah.
Down in Ganesh.
Yeah.
Weird.
They haven't changed the carpet.
No, it's still red.
Yeah.
That's so weird. We went to X together like 8 million years ago. Oh no, was it that long ago?
8 million years
Maybe it was longer.
Right. Anyway, I'll leave you to your...
Yeah. We're just having a little...
Text?
He's having we're doing a podcast. So now you're part...
Sorry.
No,
Now
okay.
you're part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's Holly Arsenault, everybody.
Yeah. No,
Great,
you
amazing.
can plug yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Unplug myself, more like it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Anyway, what was it going on about? Oh, Ravi. So I end up going to the Ravi Shankar show, but I have to take all these kids with me, right? And some of them are good kids, and some of them are sort of troubled kids from the neighborhood. You know?
Okay.
They've got some bad stuff going on. And they're like, and this is what, at least 15 years ago. But the cell phones were just starting to happen, and the kids were playing their video games, and they wouldn't turn their volume down on them.
Oh, no.
Rabbi's up there like
Just shredding.
wailing and shredding, and then his daughter's even shredding harder, and we're like, so we had to get all that together and shut them down, and finally they did. But once I got all that together and I was able to focus on the show, it's just